As we enter the end of Season 1 of Star Wars Unlimited, we head towards the final store showdowns. I'm Faith, and I'm here with Jrod and his Dudeness. Today we want to talk about the supply of Set 2, and then talk about some of the freshly spoiled cards. Before we get into that, however, I want to turn it over to his Dudeness.
Yeah, because I want to share with you guys my personal favorite experience that's happened to me related to the general community of Star Wars Unlimited. So, a Discord user, Kaya-san, reached out to me a few weeks ago. We had played a bunch leading up to the release of Star Wars over Discord and stuff. We knew each other pretty well, played a bunch of games. And he reached out asking if I needed some extra random cards for my collection. He wanted to kind of gift like, cards for being a cool guy, helping out the community. And I was like, sure, right? So he sends me some cards. It takes about a couple weeks to get from Canada to here in Texas. And when I get the package, it's one of the most secure packages I've ever seen. It's in a bubble mailer, super tightly packed. And inside of it is two pieces of cardboard. And sandwiched between that are like sheets of cards and penny sleeves. And all of that is wrapped in a bunch of printer's tape. And it was like one of the most ridiculous things I'd ever seen. And it was quite the process to like get inside of this package. And so I'm working at it with like a little knife to cut away the tape and to get inside of it. And as I'm cutting away this package, I I start to get a glimpse of some of the cards underneath the cardboard. And I start to see a few bamboozles and then like more and more bamboozles. And there was a moment in time there where I thought that they had sent me nothing but bamboozles and all of these penny sleeves. And I wasn't even mad. I was proud. I was so proud. It was like a teacher and a student thing. Like I had taught these guys everything that I could in the art of the bamboozle. And it was like it was incredible. I was like, they actually sent me nothing but bamboozles as a giant bamboozle to the king of all the bamboozles. But then as I get inside of it all, I realize it behind each of these penny sleeves, behind each bamboozle is actually the random rares like Lando, Jabba the Hutt, I Had No Choice, Bail Organa, etc., etc. But for a brief moment there, I actually thought they had sent me nothing but bamboozles, and I respected the hell out of it. I can't even begin to describe how much I respected like the actual bamboozle. But as it turned out, it wasn't even a bamboozle.
It was
It
a
was
double
just
bamboozle.
it was a double bamboozle, the best kind of bamboozle. And so like that literally made my day when I opened up that package. And I want to give a shout out to Steve, Cam, Colin, John, and the rest of the boys. Thanks for sending me the cards. I appreciate it, and certainly something I'll never forget.
Shout out to all the homies from Canada as well.
Oh, now we're just doing shout outs. All right. Shout out to, I don't know. Shout out to my guy, Morgan Will. Morgan is Marauder Mo in our Discord, always chatting it up in here. Local friend of mine, was a friend of the podcast. We ended up hanging out and meeting a bunch of times, and now is kind of just more of just a friend than a viewer of the podcast. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
you know, love
Hell yeah.
this platform is allowing us, at least for myself, is like making friends and connections with people that I might not have always done myself. So it's pretty awesome to
Exactly.
have that. Yeah.
100%. I mean, even you guys, like, we wouldn't have met if it wasn't for Star Wars Unlimited and Discord and
Yeah.
hanging out
True that.
online. So I mean, so yeah,
So
thanks for thank you.
if you want to be our friend, join our Discord.
True that.
Absolutely.
We need more friends. We
Me
love friends.
especially.
All right, let's get into some set two goodies.
Yeah,
Faith.
so there's been a lot of talk about supply with Set 2. How have you guys been finding the supply around your local area?
Okay, well, first question I want to ask about this. Did either of you guys put in an order or pre-order on the Asmodee site and then get subsequently canceled?
Negative Ghost Rider.
Not I.
Because that would be hilarious just for meme reasons. Because there was a big stink about everybody getting their pre-orders canceled.
I did see that.
Because Asmodee, I guess, opened up some pre-orders, and everybody was like, "Oh my god, let's go order all the boxes." And then they realized, wait, we don't have this many boxes to give.
Yeah, from what I heard, it was a glitch in their system that
Yeah,
they weren't supposed to be put out in general at all, and they did, and now but then I'm hearing some people haven't got an email yet saying they haven't got it, so up in the air on whether that will deliver or not.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a little bit of an unfortunate.
I'm not a big proponent necessarily of purchasing online. I'm always going to try to get from my local store first. So for me, I do have a pre-order in for a full case from my local store that I go play on every Thursday, Game King in Fall River, Mass. I know they've already done a bunch of pre-orders. Like I'm pretty sure they've already had like 8 cases pre-ordered at minimum. I think it might even be more than that. And they're doing like $100 a box if you get a case, so a pretty reasonable price in my opinion, and probably a great price in the long run for set 2 stuff for like day one. So that's what I'm looking for. I know there's one of the other stores big near me, the Armory, is doing pre-orders now, but they're limiting it to 3 boxes per person at $100, which is still a good deal.
Sure.
I probably won't be purchasing from them because I'm not going to get 9 boxes. That just seems like more than I'm going to need because I'm going to draft a bunch anyways.
9 boxes seems a bit much, honestly. Yeah, unless you're like trying to hunt for showcases or whatever.
Yeah. But one thing I will say, I've seen a lot of people like, oh, I'm not going to get any product for set 2, so I'm going to sell my stuff because this game's, I'm not going to be able to get any product, this and that. And all I'm going to say is that one of the things that when this game first launched and the product was plentiful for anyone that wanted it,
Yep.
I was laughing at Lorcana people because they were going through the same issues that we're going through now, where they couldn't get any product and couldn't play. And now that Lorcana has had basically a full year to figure things out, their product issues have kind of basically evaporated, and there's plentiful and everyone has product in the game. Even locally, has people been playing it a ton, and it seems to be growing more and more, even with some online things not working out for them. But grand scheme of things, Lorcana's doing really well now with product available, and I think that Star Wars is going to do the same thing. So if I were you guys, I wouldn't be in a rush. If you can't get product for set 2, it's definitely a massive bummer, so I understand that. And if you have like builder stuff, you can go sell stuff. Life comes first. But if you have the funds where you could just hold on to the cards and just wait it out, that's kind of the what I would do if I were in your shoes, not being able to get anything for set 2 or not having a scene around you necessarily. I will say I saw someone in the local Discord of mine saying that there's nothing around them that plays weekly, but then they're 30 minutes from the store in Fall River I just mentioned. And I was like, well, we play weekly there on Thursdays. You're welcome to stop in. And they never responded. So, I mean, like, if you're not willing to drive 30 minutes to go play a game you enjoy, I mean, it is what it is at that point. I don't know. It's kind of like,
As a caveat, I have to drive a minimum of 30 minutes anywhere I want to go play the game at,
yeah.
and usually drive like 45 minutes one way to go play.
Yeah, I'm around the hour mark myself for how far away I play. 30 to a minimum 30 as well. Looking at an hour unusual, and that's how it goes if you want to play the game. I would
Yeah.
also address with the like availability of getting boxes. I was listening to some people talk about the game and talking about how their friend wanted to get into the game and they can't find any boxes, and they seem to like I guess and from my understanding not understand how like game production works. I know it seems like a long time ago, but you could have bought as many boxes as you wanted of set 1 up until late March. The game came out, people were dumping boxes very cheaply. There was a lot that was able to be produced, and at that point, FFG might have been looking and saying, "Oh, we printed too much." And it was only after people played the game, started to really like the game, and said, "Hey, this isn't just a flop like we were expecting," that the supply ran short. So FFG had a very tough job in predicting the right amount to print. And then and they mentioned in one of their videos, they made a special video where they talked about how they printed more of this game than any other game they've done in like the entire year's worth of Destiny. So they tried to print to demand, and demand was just greater than that. And then the other appreciation is you can't just snap your fingers and there be more product. Product takes time to produce, and so that's why we're having to wait until December for more set 1 stuff. And even with the set 2 stuff, you might not be able to get it at release. And I agree, that's frustrating. Don't have my boxes yet locked in. I'm going to try to get some locked in, but and I'm going to try to go to pre-releases and releases to get cards immediately. But they did talk about releasing this set 2 in waves. So you might not get the first wave, but the second wave is going to come quicker to release than set 1's wave situation. because they're already anticipating the hype. And they talked about how set 3, we're hopefully not going to have these issues anymore. So set 2, it's in an awkward spot, but just hold on a little bit. I trust FFG, who have been doing everything right so far, to just hold on and wait, be patient. Hopefully, come September, you'll be able to buy as much set 2 as you want.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, even right now, like, the prices are still kind of high for cards. Like, even they're starting to come down for sure. Like,
They're definitely coming
there's
down.
yeah, like, which is good news. I think mostly because Store Showdown season's over, which kind of makes sense, right? Like, there's not really much to play for right now. That it's kind of like fading and going set 2. People are just selling out because there's no more Showdowns to play in. So that's good. But also, like, if there was just more product, like these Vaders would be like $20-$30 right now. Like, I wholeheartedly believe if you could buy a box of these cards on the shelf right now for set 1, Vader would be like $20-$30, and he'd be the most expensive, still the most expensive card, but he would be like that price range, which is good news because I remember in the beginning, Dudeness and I were very big on, like, this game should be, or the way it's set up should be relatively cheap, and because of the shortages, it wasn't. And I think that a lot of these issues, the expensive cards and product shortages, I think will be fixed next year. I think, like, starting in like set 4 will probably be run without a hitch for the most part. They'll probably print more than enough, and you'll be able to get whatever you want. Set 3 might even start seeing a little bit better of a print run, but set 2, they said that they'd already planned it with set 1 pretty much. So, like, I am expecting this to be the exact same print run as set 1, maybe a little bit more, but I would expect it to be very similar. So,
I mean, Jim basically said that they were able to increase the print run of set 2 straight up.
oh,
I
did he?
think the initial wave is going to be the same. So like the first, and then they're going to have a second wave. That's how I kind of interpreted what Jim was saying, was that initially there's going to be the same amount, but then they have a second wave coming quite soon afterwards, and that will
Much
increase.
quicker turnaround than the set 1 reprint.
Yeah,
you have to wait on.
Yeah, that's what I kind of heard. So, and one other thing with the Vader comment, just because when we get more cards, we're doubling the number of cards in the total pool. So Vader, well, a good card. If you don't have Vaders, you can use someone like Maul coming up, and that
Now
will make now you can. So that's going to make, like, the need for those certain specific cards, which in the past were unreplaceable, now they're starting to become, oh, okay, I don't have this card, so I can use this other card.
Yeah.
Another thing to just keep in mind, if I'm not mistaken, the Store Showdown should be 1 month after release. For set 1, it was a special case where it was 2 months. But this, for set 2 and going on, it should be 1 month after release.
So that is a little curious, actually. And like set 2 is when we start seeing actual, like, qualifier stuff, right? Question mark.
I thought that was next year.
Was it like
For points that matter next year, I thought they said they were going to have one big event in set 2, or one of the competitive tier events in set 2.
I don't remember. Maybe. I mean, I trust you
I
guys.
can't remember now. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
If you know, comment below so you can inform us if there'll be an event.
And let us know how much of set 2 you're gonna try to get your hands on.
So I'm still just on Team 1 box. Team 1 box and singles plus a bunch of limited stuff. That seems like the way to go. I haven't actually been able to pre-order the box from anywhere, but my LGS here locally, that they were very smart with their product, and they were still able to hold drafts as recent as last Saturday. And they busted out, it was a 16-person draft, so they used 3 full booster boxes, 2 for the draft and 1 for the prize support. So whatever they're doing it right as far as managing their supply. So, but they're doing just a sign up sheet right now.
Yeah.
Sign up, request X amount of boxes, and then they're gonna allocate that based on and figure out who gets what. I just put myself down for 1 box. I get 10% off MSRP.
Okay.
That's like the discount they're giving, which
Nice.
is like it's fine with me. Like, I mean, some people
That's
are like,
$110. That's like $110 about.
yeah, pretty much. One away before taxes, right? So
Yeah.
it's fine. Like, it's a reasonable price and cheaper than MSRP here locally. It supports the LGS, which is like one of my personal favorite LGSs I've ever been to in my limited experience with LGSs. Shout out to Geek Out. And yeah.
Well, I think it's time that we start geeking out over these spoilers for set 2 that we got this week.
Oh, we didn't even talk about it beforehand this time, so we're gonna be surprising
Okay, so the
ourselves.
most important thing that happened today as we were recording Friday evening is that we did in fact find out that Zuckus brings the ruckus.
Yes.
This dude, when paired with his forlorn buddy, which was also spoiled today, has the potential to be a 7/7 ambush saboteur for 5, which is just absolutely absurd if you can get that combo to go off in either draft or premiere. It seems absolutely bonkers. But let's go over what he actually does, right? So Zuckus, he's a 5 cost, cunning villainy, 6/6 underworld bounty hunter who has Saboteur and has the text each friendly unit named Forlome gets +1/+1 and gains Saboteur. And then Forlome is a 4 cost boy, cunning villainy. He's a 4/4. He's an underworld bounty hunter. He's also a droid. He has ambush and very similar text in that each friendly unit named Zuckus gets +1/+1 and gains ambush. So they're essentially buffing each other and giving each other their keyword, which is where if you have Forlome into Zuckus, you end up with a 7/7 Saboteur ambush, which just seems absolutely bonkers to me. Like, am I crazy, guys? Am I not seeing this right? Am I off here, or does that
So
seem pretty
an
good?
important thing I just want to mention is that, and normally I don't talk about this, but is the rarity, and that's uncommon. In
Yes,
particular, you mentioned limited, and so uncommon is an interesting spot in any kind of limited format because commons you're going to see a bunch of them. Uncommons you're not going to see as infrequently as rares or legendaries, but you're going to see them a little bit more limited than commons. And so they're going to be a big part of your power level. So if you can get both of these guys, it is going to be very strong.
it seems strong. Yeah, exactly.
I want to mention that there
So
are
it's not
other
gonna pick
games.
one, like just snag him, right? Like, all right, cool.
Yeah,
Snag the boy and hope you find Forlome later, or vice versa.
I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
I think Zuckus is better than Forlom
well,
because
Four
it's.
four 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 ambush is
I,
just as good in, especially in draft.
I think
in
a 6/6
limited
for 5, a 6/6 for 5 is really strong, or just that ability
for
alone.
sure. So here's the thing: is that one of the best cards in set 1 limited that was a 4/4 for 4 ambush was the
Escort,
Green Boy Escort's Gift,
escort skiff.
which was
Yes.
like pack one pick one for me a lot of times if like it was just sitting there.
Yep.
And the same thing with the 3/5 ambush boy there with you if you had a vehicle.
The
ATRT,
ATO. Yeah.
ATRT.
The RT.
ATRT. Those
Yeah.
are
Yep.
both 4 cost, and like and the skiff was just a good amount better than the ATRT because it had 4 attack. So I mean, Forlom not even needing a different thing, it just has ambush as a 4/4.
Yep.
To me, like
It's
I
just
think
good enough, straight up. It doesn't need the rest of the text is irrelevant after you do 4/4 ambush and draft.
correct. And like Boba's like, yep, give me all of these. I need this because like Boba's turn 4 always sucked if you didn't hit ramp. So like now he's got a good turn 4. You're like, oh dang it, he's got the Forlom on me. I don't know about Zuckus only because while the 5/6 is good, the one issue I have with him is that he really needs Forlom to be fully unlocked. Where like Forlom doesn't need Zuckus, just like a little bonus.
Right.
Um,
For sure.
and I don't imagine Forlom surviving super long, especially if people know you have Zuckus in your deck. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm just gonna kill Forlom after you ambush in and you have like 2 or 1 HP left or whatever it ends up being.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
in constructed, that's going to be a big thing. I think if my opponent plays a Forlom, I'm really worried in a constructed game because I'm like, man, I probably can't afford a Zuckus coming in next turn. Where in limited, I think I'm less personally concerned about that. I feel a 6/6 Saboteur for 5 is, I think, really good in limited. That's why, because if that comes on the board, now my opponent pretty much either has to win or deal with that because that's going to be dealing 20% of my opponent's health each turn in limited.
Mhm.
So I think that's why I think it's really strong. I think just stat wise, it's a really good for its cost.
It seems good. Yeah. It's 5.
And I agree. The 4/4 ambush is good. I'm not saying it's not.
Yeah, I mean, the stat line of Zuckus is the same thing as a legendary card that I think is one of the best cards in the set right now.
Yeah,
So
right.
I'm not denying the power of Zuckus, and I guess I should say for limited, he's definitely a bond that you should slam if you get him in your first pack. Like wholeheartedly, you just slam that guy because you're correct. I think a 5 cost 6/6 Saboteur is very, very good in limited. I was more referring to Premiere, where things get a little bit more efficient, and it's tough to
Yes.
be slightly inefficient and hoping you have 2 cards at the same time and it lives to the next turn. And it's like there's a lot of things that can keep you from going Forlorn into Zuckuss and
Yeah.
constructed.
In constructed, I'm big on Forlom. I will agree with you a little bit though with Forlom in Unlimited. A lot of the leaders we've have at least 2 I can think of, at least Kylo and Fennec are both 4 HP leaders, and so having Forlom in the pool is like, oh, do I want to deploy into this? And
Mhm.
so, and even hitting a Lando is pretty significant. You're dealing almost all of its life, and you still survive.
Yeah.
So that's really good. Yeah, you might even die to a Kylo too. So that's makes Kylo really sketchy in limited.
Mhm.
I just like that we have another 5-mana 6/6, which means that we're that much closer to eventually getting a 4-mana 7/7, boys.
It could happen with a good negative effect. I could see it.
Personal players might get the reference. But moving on from these 2 cards, I think the next most banger reveal we've seen so far is Heroic Resolve. Again revealed today on Friday. It's a 1-cost aggression heroic upgrade. It gives the unit +1/+1, and it gains the attached unit will gain as an action. You may spend 2 resources, defeat the heroic resolve on this unit, and then you attack with this unit. It gains +4 attack and overwhelm. So this little guy seems like it feels like it's competing for the same slot as heroic sacrifice. First of all, because they're both 1-cost heroic aggression cards.
That have heroic in their name.
Correct. But beyond that, I feel like they're both competing for the same actual slot in your deck too, because they're both kind of doing the same thing. And in this first set, I kind of went away from heroic sacrifice because it felt awkward to use if you weren't just actually finishing off your opponent with it. Or there was like really, really niche scenarios where it was correct just to like kill a unit and get the +2 right away or something. But if it felt really awkward to use, I didn't like to use it, and I ended up cutting it for most of my aggro builds. But this guy, I feel like I'm gonna be fine pulling out a curve with and slapping it down on a boy. You get a little now it does slow you down. It takes an action, but you get a little +1/+1 now, and then later on for 2 resources, you can cash in and get a +4. +4 is not an insignificant amount, and the overwhelm might be really relevant if your opponent has a sentinel in play or something that you want to kill it and also get the extra damage in on the base. Overall, it seems like pretty solid, and I can definitely see myself sliding it into my heroic aggro decks.
Well, first thing I'll say about this card is shocker that dude just picked another red hero card to say that he likes. Secondly, I think it's a great card, and I think something like that's really important for it is like if you need to trade up or they play a sentinel, you can get rid of this. This really helps your 1-drops because you get to go 1-drops into this, and then and then at that point, if you have like a 2/3 to 3/4, and it's no longer trading with any other 2-drop, so it actually makes 2/3s like this on Sabine is like really really good.
Or
Um,
even like cartel spacer turn 1. Now
yes,
you have a
exactly.
3/4 in space that
Hmm.
kills anything that they could play.
Yep. So and lives, which is the important part because like
Yep.
there's a lot of 3/2s now. But the other thing that this does is it gives +3/+0, which I know it says +4 in the card, but you're also losing the +1/+1 on the actual upgrade, so it's technically +3. But what I think that will really help with aggro decks is it's going to help them push damage through sentinels, which is something that they technically struggle with right now. I think because they play that silly little like 1-drop dude, the gets rid of sentinel, and
Spec Force Soldier.
Back
yeah,
force soldier, yep.
he's fine, but I think this card does it better because what this card does is like Spec Force just sits in your hand until they play it. This one can be proactive, so you're not being inefficient with resources on turn. Because you like the
Get the
Spec
extra
Force,
damage.
Spec Force, you're like, do I want to play it? I want to hold it because like it's important for me to have it in this matchup. Or there's times
Yeah.
you just resource him because he's not good. I think this card is almost never bad.
Yeah,
Well,
that's actually a really good point because Spec Force is heavily matchup dependent, and there's some matches where it's an easy slam dunk resources, and
Mhm.
other matchups where it's like I have to keep this card until he plays his annoying Obi-Wan or whatever it ends up being, right?
Yeah.
So I think you guys missed a very important part about this card, and that is the card's art. I think the card's art is very nice. It shows
I like
Finn
it.
with the
I like it.
lightsaber in the winter scene. Very good art.
That actually was one of my like. I don't have a lot of favorable things to say about the sequels, but I did like that like sequence in the snow and all of that when they're fighting with the lightsabers and everything in that first movie.
So shout out to Kevin for this piece of art.
I have
Yeah.
one thing bad to say about the art.
Okay,
Finn
go for
shouldn't
it.
be holding a lightsaber because he's not a Jedi. He's not force sensitive.
Sure. Sure.
But it looks nice.
It does look nice. It's a good piece of art. He just shouldn't be holding a saber. Solomon.
I mean, is this a good time to transition into the Finn leader?
So I'm actually surprised that Dudeness picked these cards as his favorite. I'm not totally surprised, but he is person Negro Space Lane boy. And we got not only one 3-2 in space, we got two 3-2 space units, 3-2 space boys. And he didn't mention either one of them.
Yeah, well, not because neither one of them are a rebel, so they don't quite speak to me as much as they could. But
Well,
I mean, they're both. I think one
the
is better than the other.
the unlicensed headhunter is not an aggro card. Let's just be very clear about that. That's a card you put in your deck if you're playing red and you don't have a good 2-cost space unit and you're not playing aggro.
It's a
'Cause you don't
2-cost
wanna
3-2 aggro underworld vehicle fighter with Saboteur. And while this unit is exhausted, it gains Bounty, heal 5 damage from your base, which your opponent would get at 5 health to their base.
You know, I didn't even read that line of text right there. I won't be honest because I don't read. It's still not a thing, Morgan.
Knocker.
But it's slightly better than I thought it was, but it's still not great.
Yeah. So like, if you're ever in a situation where you don't want to trigger the bounty, you just don't have to attack with it. Now that feels bad.
Can I give this vigilance?
Vigilance in this
Yeah,
game is
right.
broken. Vigilance in this game is.
Doesn't tap to attack. Yeah, actually, right? Because you can just keep attacking with it. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
that does not work. But
Oh, true.
so it's. I mean, but if they're not in space though, it's a 3-2, which is
Saboteur.
fine.
The first Saboteur space unit we have.
But I think compared to the other one we got, which was the mercenary gunship, which is an aspectless 2-drop 3-2 space boy that has the same tags underworld vehicle fighter, but it has the action for 4 resources, which anybody can take on the table to take control of this unit. So your opponent can basically pay off your mercenaries to come work for them instead of fighting for you, right? I've I've played this card a little bit, and there was one time when Faith here actually stole a mercenary gunship, and it felt really bad. But there is another time when you can play this at the end of your turn, and then your opponent claims if they want as their first action to take control of it, you can just as your second action take back right control of it. And more often than not, that's not gonna like that's just gonna be you guys just both wasted 4 resources in an action. And it's not that big of a deal. And especially as an aggro deck, you're gonna be running low on cards towards the mid to late game anyway, so you don't have a bunch to use your resources on anyways. But
And you're
this
going to
guy
get to
feels
attack with
better.
it.
Yeah, and this guy feels better in
Mm.
aggro for sure because there's no healing.
He's
And
definitely
as I just said, the action even isn't even that big of a downside, depending on when you play it.
I mean, if you're the aggro deck and their first action on turn 3 is to take your ship and you just take it back, you're pretty far ahead.
Correct.
Because
Yeah, 100%.
you're gonna attack for 3s. Like, they actually can't do that. They actually have to choose to not take your ship, and then you just attack with a ship first action you get, and then they're just like, "Okay, fine." And they're just ignoring the ship probably. So, like, it's an aggro card for sure. You slam it in all your aggro decks that want 3 choose in space,
Want to
which
go in
is
space. And the
every
fact that
single one.
it's aspectless is like pretty
Yeah.
cool.
In limited, that you'll see a lot of this card. It is
Oh, for sure.
uncommon, which is
It is
significant for limited.
uncommon. It is uncommon.
Probably good.
But the fact that it's aspectless, it's like any deck can run this card. So like that we've seen more space in the aspectless cards this set than I thought we would. Like Lady
Absolutely.
Proxima, this card. So like I think aspectless cards could be pretty cool in the future.
For sure. Well, I would like to quickly dive into the 2 leaders we got this week.
Sure.
we'll start off with our boy Finn, since he's already mentioned.
Yep.
He is a vigilance heroism leader. His action is defeat a friendly upgrade on a unit. If you do, give a shield token to that unit. And then his epic action is if you control 5 or more resources, you may deploy him. He deploys as a 4/6, and then on attack, you may defeat a friendly upgrade on a unit. If you do, give a shield token to that unit, and he's a fringe trooper. I think he's fine. People were hating on him, and I think he's one of those leaders that we can't fully appreciate yet. One, the full set's not out. Also, like, as cards come out, they're gonna have more things that come with upgrades and shields and experience tokens are on them. So, like, for example, like Rose is a really great card to pair with him, because when she removes her, you can remove the shield from Rose, give her 2 experience, and then like you can attack with her and remove the shield again, and like
Get you more
Oh,
experience.
yeah, like
obvious energy there with the Rose, of course.
yeah. So like she's banana lands with him, and
Banana lands.
yeah, I think that he's fine. I think he's busted. No, I don't think he's like insanely busted. Obviously, he's only a 4/6 compared to a 4/7 in Boba Fett, and Boba has a better ability. So like he would need a lot to really help him, but he does get to play Luke Skywalker for like free because he's basically in those colors already. So like that's a cool thing, and he gets to use the green base, which we all know is a very good thing. So he could be a great mid-range leader, depending on what comes out. Because also, like, there could be a legendary Ahsoka that comes out. So we've seen the art for it, but we haven't seen the card, and we know she's not a leader because the last 2 leaders that haven't been revealed we know are Jabba and Han from some artworks. So we already have those confirmed. So she's not a leader, but she's in the set somehow. So maybe she's a unit. Maybe it's just an event that we saw her art for. Who knows? But if she's a legendary unit, I imagine she's going to be pretty good. And between her and Luke and Blue, if she is Blue, that would be, I think, a good deck to start is with Finn potentially.
Just to clarify something, Luke is not free to play. You still have to pay 7 for Luke.
Sure.
So
I
don't
mean,
go on the table.
That is a very important thing to note there.
I do want to talk about Finn. One thing in limited we want to talk about is this
He's
set.
rare.
We have bounties, and yeah, so he's a rare, so it's gonna be a little bit harder to see in limited. But there are going to be bounties in this set, and that's a pretty significant deal. And in particular, the bounty enchantments or upgrades I'm more talking about.
If you friendly upgrade.
Yeah. Oh, it's a friendly upgrade. Look at that.
Friendly.
So yeah. So
bots.
Yep. So I would say it's
Faith
important to
pulled a
remember
Faith.
this.
Didn't read the card.
It's important to remember. That's why I bring it up. It's important for us to remember that you can't do that. It's going to happen a lot. So just remind your opponent. Just remind your opponent the word "friendly" on the card, because in case they don't read it, in case they're silly and don't read the card before they start talking about it, building their deck around it.
Let's get to this last leaders from 750, and the Celtics are on. They're going to beat the Mavs tonight. Sorry, Dudeness.
Big sadness.
In case people didn't know, I'm from New England/Boston area, so I'm a big Celtics fan. And Dudeness is from Texas, where Dallas Mavericks are from.
Area.
So, fun fact, we're in the finals against each other, and so far I'm kicking his butt.
It's not ideal, boys. It's not ideal.
Stay tuned for our NBA podcast soon. Coming soon.
Okay, so Dr. Afra
yes,
is the rare cunning villainy. Go ahead.
Real quick. I just want to shout out Jedi Geek Girl, who was begging for Afra for like weeks, and then saw her and was very upset. And I'm sorry that you're not happy with her, but I think she has a lot of potential, and I think it's just not like super obvious, but I think she could be good. Anyways, Dudeness, go ahead, explain her.
And so she's cunning villainy, rare leader, and she has the text: when the regroup phase starts, discard a card from your deck. So right off the bat, she's doing some weird discard shenanigans. We haven't seen the full set. There's got to be more cards beyond Kylo's TIE Silencer that care about being discarded from your deck potentially.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, she deploys at 5. She is a 2/5, not the most spark-inducing stat line. But while there are 5 or more different costs among the cards in your discard pile, she gains +3/+0, so she can be a 5/5 if you deploy it in the right state. And when deployed, you get to choose 3 cards in your discard with different names, and if you do, you may return one of them at random to your hand. So she's the first leader that actually does a thing when deployed straight up.
Second.
Palpatine?
Oh, yeah, Palpatine. Oh, right. So she's a second leader that does the thing when deployed. First leader that actually draws you cards when deployed. Take that.
Sure. Technically, Cassian draws cards too, but he has.
But not when he
She draws
deploys.
for free. She draws for
Not when
free.
he deploys. But anyways, I'm just trying to find some good things to say about her.
Mhm.
The art really is fire. I remember in the art streams earlier, Tyler calling this particular piece out as one of his favorite of the set, and
Beautiful piece.
I do agree. Yeah, it's gonna look great in hyperspace.
Sandra, great job. Great job, Sandra.
But yeah, there's gotta be more cards coming to help synergize here with her discard thing.
I just want to clarify, she's actually the third leader with the when deploy, because you also have Kira, who when deploys heals
Oh,
Damn it,
yes.
family.
dude.
Yeah.
Who's no touch? Who's no touch here?
Listen, Kira doesn't even count as a leader. Copium.
I will say that Afra for me actually sparks good amount of joy because I love like value engines, and that's what she is. It's the reason why I think she has a lot of potential. As we get like cards like Palpatine's Return, I don't think fits with her too well because like I don't see many Force users going in this
Right.
deck. But like that kind of like recursion from your graveyard or like getting things back from the graveyard is like she's gonna fuel that heavily and give you lots of options. And I always love having a lot of options. So and she is, while a 2/5 can be a 5/5 if you have 5 more cards in your discard pile at different costs. Which, if you're playing cards and your opponents are defeating them and you're discarding cards, you're likely going to have a bunch of cards in your graveyard, and she's going to be likely a 5/5 for 5. Still not amazing because it can be taken down, all that good stuff, but still reasonable. Like it's
That's fine.
it's what you wish IG88, put it that way.
I mean, I would save him from open fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as we're talking about cards that spark joy, I do want to mention Spark of Hope quickly. 2 cost command heroism that choose a unit in your discard pile. If it was defeated this phase, put it into play as a resource.
Hero got their own ramp card.
A question for you. How does this work with it? Does this work at all with Han Solo's ability? Because it does say put a card from your hand into play as a resource, and then at the start of the next action phase, defeat a resource you control.
But so, because it's a resource at that time, it's not a unit that was defeated; it was a resource. So that's
even
the distinguishing
if
factor.
even if it was a unit card.
Okay. Yes, correct. Because the cards, when they flip over to get discarded, they're not like that. Like you wouldn't trigger their when defeated effect if it had a when defeated effect,
Sure.
right? So like that's I believe the reasoning why. I think they confirmed it at some point that it doesn't work that way, but
that's fair.
I believe
maybe it was like choose a unit card. That might be different because then it would talk about the actual card being a unit,
correct,
not the state of the card being a resource or a unit. Okay,
correct.
But yeah, the important thing to note that I think this card is kind of a banger, and instead of Spark of Hope, it should be called Spark of Joy. Did someone already make that joke? I can't remember. It seems pretty good. I was testing it a little bit in Leia, and it didn't really feel bad. So on your 4 resource turn, they kill off one of your units, you ramp, play 2 drop, get to deploy Leia, and now the following turn you can play a wrecker, finish off anything on the ground, and that felt pretty alright. So I mean, I think it has a potential slot in some aggro builds, and definitely in mid range for sure.
I think especially in a game where you can choose your targets, you can choose for one of your units to be defeated, which I think is important for this card.
I think this might be better than Super Laser Tag. And that's a lot to say. And hear me out. We're getting a lot of bounties. So having a unit that you want to get rid of when your opponents are playing lots of bounties out on your units already, like probably isn't a positive thing. So I think that you might see less Super Laser Tech because of that, potentially, depending on what the meta shakes out to be. Like if a Bosk aggro deck becomes like popular, I can see Laser Tech not being a thing anymore because of it.
Potentially.
Because he's an easy guy to trigger bounties off of?
Yeah, because like your opponent's going to do it for you pretty much. You put him on him, and he's just like, do I want to ramp or do I want to get my opponent 3 damage on my base and 2 resources and all these things? And so like, it's a lot. I mean, obviously he's not unique, so that's helpful, but like,
interesting conversation. We gotta give one shout out to the boy with Let the Wookiee Win, a 2 cost cunning heroism card. Lets an opponent choose one. You may ready up to 6 resources, or you may ready a friendly unit. If it's a Wookiee unit, attack with with it, it gains +2/+0 for this attack. Some interesting art from a pretty iconic scene, but from my experience with the card, it's not that great, but I just wanted to shout it out for the boy.
I just wanted to also say they should probably let this particular Wookiee stay in your binder.
Probably all the Wookiees should just stay in your binder.
No, I'm not ready to go there just yet.
Okay.
And
I haven't
that's
sussed them out.
copium in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, there is one Wookiee, you're right. It's the Tension Block Rescue, where there's a Wookiee on the card, and that card is just better than Open Fire. Is it better? No, because it's only 3, right? So actually, it's like slightly worse.
It's conditionally better if they're guarding something.
I thought it was just straight up better, and then I realized that it's only 3 and not 4 right now, because I didn't read it before. Tension Block Rescue is a 3 aggression event gambit. Deal 3 damage to a unit. If that unit is guarding any captured cards, deal 6 damage instead. With the card we're talking.
This feels like a draft card.
100%.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. That's all the time we have today. We'll catch you next time on Outmaneuver.
Cheers.
Go Celtics.